And I think it's one of those things that it's a maternal or a paternal quality that people develop, and there's lots of people that have reproduced but never developed this maternal quality or this paternal quality because it's not cool. Maybe it's not, part of what they experienced because they had maybe younger parents that were just still teenagers and still self-absorbed when they were kids. I think it's a maturation thing. But the thing about maturity is that you can be physically mature very young, but not economically mature ever. You might blow your wad, every way, shape, and form you can. You could be spiritually mature, but on the other hand, your mental capacity to be able to, you might be able to, dig into some real juicy bits in terms of your own personal growth. But when it comes down to being book smart or maybe being able to learn new things, you're not really that great. So I think we're spinning a lot of plates when it comes to that maturation. And I think takers in general, the truly selfish people, the ones that are, again, the black holes, so to speak, it's just a part of their maturation that hasn't developed in a lot of ways. And you can liken it to a lot of things in ways that people have just not chosen to evolve. And I don't think you can make someone generous. I think you can be the example that you want to be. But after having visited a lot of hippie communes, there's definitely a lot of people that need 2 servings of, quinoa every night and are unwilling to do a lot of things. House guests. You have people come stay at your, I've always had a very open door policy. Some friends are down to help you with whatever, and then some, trash the house, get drunk, and then leave. So and don't bring you a damn thing when they come over. So I was raised differently. But think about it, man. If life's a party, you invite people to your party, and here on the East Coast, I don't know if I experienced it as not something that people do in California. But here, if you are invited over someone's house, in general, you feel obliged to bring, maybe it's a potluck, you bring food, maybe potluck's a different example. But having thrown parties in California, people definitely came just like, yo, what up? Here I am, here's me. And that's cool, but I wasn't raised that way. And I would feel, I'm not saying like you're going over your buddy's house for a cup of coffee or whatever, but I'm saying you're going to a party. I was raised that you bring something because that's what you do, whether you're meeting a woman, you bring flowers, whatever. It's a gesture of care or thoughtfulness, hopefully, or at least, bring a 6-pack of some Mexican piss water or something,
I think we've come full circle then, because what you just, described was back to, the very first question we kind of dug into this topic was, is it inherent or is it taught? You said you were raised differently. Maybe these people weren't raised to be generous. Maybe it's something that needs to be shown to us. Maybe we need to have kind, generous acts experienced over a time. And that's something travel can bring out, as we discussed. When you are traveling on the road, when you have nothing and you don't know where to go, where to be, how to speak, what the cultural traditions are, there is nothing that communicates more to your soul than someone being generous to you. And with enough acts like that happen to you, I don't know, even the most black hole of black hole people, takers, get put in a situation where they're kind of, they're at that cliff's edge where they have to start to rely on other people's generosity. And I don't know that something like that would be the wake-up call for them, but I'd have to be hard-pressed to say they're going to maybe act a little bit different next time they show up to your house at a party.
Yeah, that's bravo to you for believing in people that much. I may be a little bit more jaded on that front. I can think of it straight off the bat, man. I was in Guatemala several months ago, sitting by Lago Atitlan in San Marcos, and there's a bunch of super kind, wise humans, and we're sitting around in this hostel, sharing beer, passing smoke, sharing tobacco, whatever, and it's a flow. And then this one dude rocks up and is, yo, can I hit that? Yo, let me have a drink of that. Yo, da, 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 da. And you literally see the whole group of people begin to turn away from him. And every time he talks, people cut him off on purpose. It was like this tribal, this sense of community. This guy's coming in, taken from other people, and just in a wise circle, just getting, energetically and attention wise cut out. Where in the beginning people feel obliged to give, and when they realize that they're being taken advantage of, they're phased out. And I think on a tribal level, if you go travel the world, and the one thing I feel, and it saved my life when I had been traveling on the West Coast, Hawaii, Fiji, wherever. When I had the money was gone. Here it is. It's just me. I had one question. I would learn it in other languages. I would advise everyone to practice it in the mirror. Is how can I be of help? How can I help? How can I be of service? Whatever, kind of version of that is. Because if you walk into a situation where you don't know anybody, you're all alone in the world, and you offer your help, whatever it is, even if they don't need help, but that is your first, before you even introduce yourself, you ask, how can I be of help? How can I be of service? I guarantee you've made a friend. And it's it's the right way to kind of begin the dialogue. Not, hey, do you have, if you're gonna put your hand out, I don't know, make the gesture. I mean, even if you, I don't know, it changed my life. It changed my life.
I agree. I agree with you completely, but I can't imagine the guy in your scenario was on the brink of having nothing, was lost in the world, and at his last dire need, and walks up and says, "Yo, can I take a hit of that? Can I have a drink of that?" I mean, I don't know. Correct. So that was my explanation, prior going into this. As you travel and you lose everything, when somebody opens their door and then becomes generous to you when you have nothing and you are kind of at your rock bottom, it starts to maybe shed a light on this idea of generosity. I'm not saying it breaks through to those people, but it certainly will make a little pinhole in the dike of their takership, I would imagine, because the people that I'm talking about that even would put themselves in that situation, which is what I was going to say earlier, might not even be the taker in the first place. They're not going to put themselves in that out of their comfort zone enough to even reach that point where they might be in turn looking gratefully upon generosity.
Well, definitely. Let me listen. I think the story of colonialization was generally like, "Hey, who are you? Okay, you don't have a flag." The quote is the user. Okay, this is ours now. Man, I generosity has definitely kicked people in the butt, historically speaking. And I think it's a fine line, brother. It's a fine line, and I think what is amazing about travel, and I agree with you on this level, is that it allows humility for people who've never experienced it, because they've never maybe found lack or have been lost in the world, and really do need human kindness to be the difference between a warm bed or a belly full of food, and that, I think, offers one of the most profound differences. It's interesting because it leads me to think that a lot of people that never travel, they stay at home, they watch the news, they have a very fearful view of humanity, which are all these, like, it's like a streamlined narrative of like all the reasons to be afraid. But on the other hand, you ask most travelers, is what percentage of humanity is kind, and usually get the high 90s. I think some people that maybe have had some serious hardships that I've heard are kind of near in the 92 to 91%. But I think that a lot of people, we train our kids, beware of strangers, beware of kidnapping or people abducting you. And I mean, it is a legitimate concern. But then we get to a certain place where, some people kind of hold on to that narrative, and in certain areas, justifiably so. Granted, I mean, there are indeed dangerous places, and to be 6'1" and bearded and a large man, I am offered certain privileges that maybe tidy, cute women aren't in walking down the same street. So granted, I totally get that. But that all being said, I think I know lots of tiny, cute women who have wandered the earth in utter safety and have found only kindness, generosity, and abundance. So it really just depends.
With travel, I find when you were saying how you approach other people of how can I be in service to you, and I agree that is a fantastic line that anybody should learn, not only in another language but their own language. I found recently when people approach me with that kind of an attitude, I'm actually taken aback and put off my own guard and being like, wow, let me really think. How could you help me? And it changes the whole discourse of the conversation you're about to have with that person. And there's another line that I learned while traveling abroad that was said to me. A lot of cultures, their immediate interaction with a foreigner or a local, our version of "Hi, how are you?" That very kind of I almost want to say routine, fake dialogue that happens between two people, and you don't really care how somebody is. Their version of that is, "Have you eaten yet?" And that's their course of how are you is, "Have you eaten yet?" Because offering somebody food and sharing something over a meal is the most generous form of engagement that they can do to you, and they're going to get to know you on a different level. And it's that level of cultural generosity that I have found traveling. Again, I'm not saying that our particular culture isn't generous. It's just in traveling, I felt these things are somehow already embedded into the culture itself by that line, "Have you eaten yet?"
Made the table, the almighty dinner table, is really, no matter race, or economic background or anything, is where everyone, for the most part, it's just kind of sitting at eye level. We're all sitting together. We're all sharing in sustenance and in life. And I think that the dinner table is probably internationally regarded as one of the places where the sensuality and also the thankfulness, the gratefulness. Some people have an offering or a prayer before the meal as well. And I think it really is the leveling of all playing fields, whether you're sitting on the floor, sitting in a chair, whatever. That to be invited over for dinner, to be invited to come have a bite, it really shows that equality amongst people, because we all got to eat, you know. And I think for the same purpose, you look in terms of the spiritual sense. I remember hanging out with a shaman in Peru, and the wise elders there kind of looked at all these guys like Buddha or Jesus, or these are indigenous people, mind you, from the Andes, and said, listen, everyone poops, and there's that humility on that end of it, on that end of the spectrum too. So I think that anything that allows us to keep that humility and level that playing field from believing that we're all that important, because I think importance, that self-importance, is often what you know is the motivation for giving, but also the motivation to forget about other people's needs as well. So I think with that humility, whether from travel or just sitting around the table, and being invited over by friends, it's instrumental in our feeling of belonging, and in our transcending the tribe, so to speak.
I think that brings it to a good point. I want to throw this one last kind of thought at you and get your feelings, and it might be a good place to kind of wrap up, is that idea of breaking bread, that idea of generosity that you were just speaking of. There's something so peaceful, so connective, so bonding about that relationship when somebody offers you something like that and is generous. It makes me wonder, on a grander scale, because I'd only experienced that when I travel in that form, and it might be earlier to what you're talking about being a guest, but there's still something special about that moment that makes me feel part of the whole. And I wonder, somewhere along the line, when you were talking about this narrative, this fear-based narrative that is for the people that potentially don't go travel, that is being pushed out to us, have we gotten too far away from the truth of why we're actually here in general? I know it's a much bigger question than generosity, but the generosity portion of that question